So my name is Victor Elliott, and I'm the director of the Business IT Lab here at Handels. And what we are trying to do as an integrated part of the business department is to try to expose students, you guys, to different types of software solutions throughout the education. And we are aiming towards getting you to get a lot of exposure to this now. And one of the things that we are now initiating is these type of keynote lectures. And you are basically the test bed for that. So we will have keynote lectures one time every year for you guys. And then that will become an institution on the topic of digitalization, which is, of course, tremendously important for you guys when you enter into business life. In addition to that, and on today's topic, IT security is something that we generally not talk enough about. And therefore, we will be very happy to listen to what you have to say in terms of educating us on what it means for businesses, firm value creation, and how we can protect ourselves. So we had a lunch before, and one of the key things that we discussed is to raise awareness about the issue of cybersecurity or IT security. And I think this is a really good start in terms of that. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction, and thanks to you for joining us today. Indeed, my name is Mikko, and that is a Finnish name, so the en fin the EN. But we will be doing today's lecture, instead of Finnish, we'll do it in English, if you're happy with that. I've spent all my life hunting hackers. That's what I do. That's my job. Hunting hackers. And when I say hackers, I mean the evil hackers, the bad hackers, the black hat hackers, the people who break into our networks, who crack our security systems to steal money, the people who write viruses and malware and trojans and backdoors, the people who send spam. Because there are other kinds of hackers as well. Good hackers, kind hackers, nice hackers, white hat hackers. Hackers who break security, but who don't do it for evil, who don't do it for bad purposes, who do it to improve our security, to help us. So when we speak about hackers, it's very important to keep in mind that we have completely different kinds of hackers. We have hobbyists who hack for fun. We have hackers who just try to improve security, who are not trying to do anything bad at all. We have hackers who try to make money by stealing from us. We have hackers who work for foreign intelligence agencies. We have hackers who work for foreign militaries. We have hackers who are involved with extremists and terrorist movements. So there's a wide range of hackers. And if you're worried about hackers, the first thing you should do, especially for an organization, for a company that's worried about hackers, the first thing that company should do is to figure out who they're worried about. Is to figure out their threat assessment. Like, who are we? What do we do? Who would like to hurt us? Who would like to steal from us? Who would like to make us look bad? Who would like to spy on us? Are we a target of foreign intelligence agencies? These are questions where the answers are different for different organizations. Some organizations indeed are targets for foreign intelligence agencies, but most companies and most organizations are not. Because most companies and most organizations have nothing worth spying for. Like if you're a pizza chain making pizzas, you will never be targeted by Russian intelligence agencies. Like there's nothing worth. They're not interested in your recipes. You will never be targeted by that. But you will be targeted by organized crime gangs who are interested in your payroll systems, who are interested in your online bank terminals, who are interested in the credit card data that you control, who are interested in money. So building defenses start from understanding the attackers. the threat assessment shapes where organizations should be putting their limited resources and limited budgets in this space. Now, I've been hunting hackers for the last 27 years now. I started when I joined a small startup company in 1991. I was recruited by this young, tall guy called Risto. He hired me as his employee number 6. Eventually that company started growing bigger, expanded in various directions. We started doing endpoint security, started building antivirus systems, started building VPNs for encrypting network communications. Then we started building enterprise-level security appliances. Then we started building a consulting business around this, including services where when your organization gets hacked or is under a denial of service attack, you can call our incident response guys who will come running over and will help you figure out how to get your company back up and running. Or at the other end of the spectrum, if you're interested in how good your existing security is, you can hire us to break into your network. And then we will break into your network. Our success rate in red teaming exercises and penetration tests is 100%. Every time we've been hired to break into a company, we've broken into a company. Which tells you a little bit about the level of security in today's networks. And that small startup that I joined 27 years ago is still today the company where I work today. Secure. I was 21 years old when I joined. I'm turning 50 next year. I've spent all my adult life working for the same company. So if there's one takeaway I want you to take away from my lecture today, is that don't take career advice from me. It's a bad idea to stay in the same company for 27 years. But that's exactly what I've done. And I guess the reason why I've never switched companies is that I haven't had a boring day. To speak to 50-year-olds about their experience with their employers and about their work life, I guess everybody has had a boring day. I seriously don't remember having a boring day at work, because in security, things change all the time. In security, it's a little bit more than just about coming to work and sitting at a computer and pounding away all day. In security, you're trying to defend against unknown attackers. We have a very real enemy that we are trying to fight against. And when I look around at our office, we have 1,600 people working for us in 29 countries around the world today. When I'm in any of our offices and look around the staff we have, what I see is world-class researchers, world-class developers, world-class analysts, world-class reverse engineers. Great people who could work in any company, in any IT company, in any field. They could be working to build, I don't know, operating systems, or they could be building search engines or social media platforms or games. However, they choose to work in security. Most of them have actively chosen to work in security. Why? Because when you work in security, you're helping people, which gives you purpose. And having purpose means a lot. Sure, the very same people we have could be working, I don't know, for Google. Doing what? Pushing ads on people's browsers. Your purpose is to push ads on people. That's a pretty lousy purpose. Yeah, it's a great company, great products. I love them. I just wish I could pay for them with money instead of paying with my privacy. When you use Google services, you pay. You just don't pay with money, you pay with your privacy. When I was a small boy, I would always tell my parents that when I grow up I want to be a doctor. I don't really know why. I guess I thought it was cool. And I guess there was the element of helping people. Then when I grow a little bit older, I realized that I can't really look at blood. I can't really look at it. So if you can't look at blood, you can't become a doctor. So I didn't become a doctor. But instead I became, I don't know, a virus doctor of some kind, computer virus doctor. Maybe there's some element of that within it, that I wanted to be in a position where we help people. And now, don't get me wrong, I work for a company. We're publicly listed on NASDAQ, OMX. We're a company trying to make a profit. We sell a service. Obviously we do. We're trying to make a profit in this. But it's a little bit more than just that. When you speak with people who work in security, there's almost always a very strong element of fighting against bad people, trying to protect good people, trying to protect people's privacy and people's security against the attackers. And this also illustrates itself in the fact that security companies do a surprisingly large amount of cooperation amongst each other. I'm speaking about the worst competitors, like the companies which are the most direct competitors with each other, are doing surprisingly large amounts of sharing information, sharing intelligence, concretely helping each other. Like our analysts, our labs people are sitting on the same mailing list where analysts from Symantec or McAfee or Kaspersky or Sophos or any of the security companies are sitting, talking about what we're seeing. New attack here, new attack here. Has anybody cracked the key for this malware? We've been trying to crack it for 2 days, we can't figure it out. And then an analyst from a competing company said, yeah, we cracked it, try this key. Helping a direct competitor. Why? Because tomorrow they might be asking, and then we would be helping. Why do we do this? Because we're facing the same enemy. When you work in basically any other part of IT, you don't have enemies, or your enemies are your competitors. Like if you work for, I don't know, Spotify, your enemy is Apple Music, or Pandora, or RDO. That's your enemy. That's not a real enemy, that's a competitor. When you work in security, we have criminals that we're trying to block. People who wish bad on our clients and customers and on us. So the guy who hired me back then in 1991, Risto, the founder of the company, he's still our chairman today. Nowadays he though spends more of his time being the chair of another company. He's today also the chairman of Nokia. In fact, he's the guy who orchestrated the magic trick 5 years ago. You might remember the magic trick, when Nokia had been fighting the invasion of iPhone for 6 years, and Nokia mobile phone business was almost dead. Nokia ended up selling the dying mobile phone business to Microsoft for $7.1 billion US. Nokia then used that $7.1 billion US to buy NSN Networks and Alcatel-Lucent, converting Nokia from handset manufacturer into a base station manufacturer. LTE, 4G and 5G base stations, which means there's 3 large base station manufacturers left on the planet: Ericsson of Sweden, Nokia of Finland, and Huawei of China. In fact, Nokia today has more employees than what they had. Like when they sold mobile phones to Microsoft, Nokia had 60,000 employees. Today they have 100,000 employees. And it's profitable. Which is quite remarkable turning around story for a company which almost died. We discuss these shifts regularly whenever I see Risto. He's obviously a very busy guy nowadays, running two big companies. But it's also a great example on how companies and how the marketplace around us changes, and the companies that survive through decades and centuries are the ones which are able to pivot or pivot. I always carry something with me to remind myself of where I'm coming from. I carry a virus with me from 1991. Most of you were not born in 1991, I'm guessing. Something like close to that anyway. This is a virus-infected floppy carrying a virus called form.a, which is from 1991, which was one of the first viruses I ever analyzed. This is the time before the internet. Now, internet as a protocol was invented in 1969, but internet as something which we would actually use in our everyday lives really started around 1993, 1994. First with email, which became commonplace on computers, and then web. I set up the first website for our company in April 1994, and that was fairly early on. There were 16 websites, there were 15 websites in Finland before our website. Our website was website number 16 in the whole country. That's how small it was in 1994. But I still remember the excitement and the clear vision, how obvious it was that this is going to become a big thing. This internet is going to become a big thing. And this World Wide Web that we can access with browsers is going to become a big thing. At the time, we could only access it with our computers. The phones at the time definitely couldn't handle it, but computers could. And this was a big shift, because before 1994, we geeks and nerds, we knew how to use the internet, no problem. But then this web thing was so easy to use that anybody could use it. Your grandmother could use it. No, you have a mouse, you have pictures, you can click on things, easy. This is going to be successful. And I remember we had this discussion around the kitchen table in the office about the future of the web. And, we have a website now. People can come from anywhere on the planet and visit our website, which tells about us and about what we do. There's going to be more websites. Other companies are going to do this as well. It's going to become a big thing. Everybody will be on the web. Eventually there will be other kinds of things on the web as well. I don't know. News articles maybe. Or weather reports. They could be on the web one day. Could be. Or movies. That would be cool. But then one of the guys around the kitchen table in the office said, hold on. If they're going to have like newspapers on the web, like that's not going to happen until there's a way for users to pay. Like, why would the newspapers put the news on the web instead of having it on paper unless the people pay? They're not going to put it online for free, right? Right. Of course they're not going to put it online for free. So how is it going to work? Well, of course, in 1994, we had no idea. So we thought, naively, we thought that certainly, surely, the browsers will implement a way of paying. Like there's going to be a button in the browser. Like, I'd like to read that news article. Click, and I'm paying 2 cents or half a cent or whatever, micropayment, to read the article. Well, here in Sweden you would use öre. Here's 20 kronors to read the article. How cheap is the krona now? Very cheap.
Thank you.
Micropayments in kronor, yes, I like it. The only kind of payments you can do in kronor is micropayments. Now, as we now know, this never happened. It's now 2018, and we still, today, don't have the button. We don't have the button in your Chrome browser, or in Safari, or in Firefox, or on your phone, or on your tablet. You can't. You go and read news articles or weather reports or comic strips. There's no button to pay for it. So the way you pay is with your privacy. The way you pay is with your data, which is a completely different way of paying for content. And sometimes I wish that history would have turned out different. But now it's probably too late to turn back the wheel. Can't go back and change it anymore. Even if we could, it's unlikely that we would be able to change people's ideas anymore. That's the website. That's the web server running our first website in 1994. Now today's situation is unique. We are living in the middle of chains of revolutions. All of us. Think about our time. Think about what would be the defining thing about our time for an outsider. Let's say someone 100 years in the future who's writing a history book about our time. Or he's writing a school report. Write a school report about the time around the change of the millennium, 2000s. The early years of the 2000s. What was important? The first thing that school report will mention is internet. Like this is the time in mankind's history that the mankind went online. These are the first people. These are the first people on the internet. So the internet will be there forever. That's the defining thing about our life. So we first saw the internet revolution where all the computers went online. And today it's hard to imagine computers which are not on the internet. But that used to be the norm. Like when I went to work to F-Secure, this was an IT company. Every desk had a computer, either a PC or a Mac, just like today. But none of those computers were online. And when I say online, I don't only mean that they were not on the internet, because internet didn't really exist in 1991, the way we think about it today. But those computers were not even connected to each other. We did not have a local area network, which means if you were working on one computer, you wrote something on one computer, you needed it on another computer, you really used a floppy. And then you walked over with the data. There was no other way. No beaming, no airdrop, no Bluetooth, no Wi-Fi, no network. Standalone computers. So this is the first revolution which happened. Every single computer went online. That's the internet revolution. And this already happened. Today you won't really find a computer which is not online. The revolution which is happening next is the connected devices revolution, which is computers already went online. Now everything else will go online. Computers already went online. This already happened. Internet revolution already happened. Now it's connected devices going online. If it uses electricity, it will be online. Everything will become a computer. And right now, it might not be obvious why this is happening. Because right now, when you go shopping for, let's say, a washing machine to the local electronics shop, right now you will see two kinds of washing machines. Traditional, old-style washing machines, and then new, smart washing machines. And these are different. The smart washing machine, first of all, it's more expensive. Second of all, it has a display. Third of all, it has an app. And there are things that you can do with the washing machine over the internet, like, schedule your clothes getting washed. Traditional devices and smart devices. And I should note here that I am the father of the Hyppönen law, which says that whenever something is called smart, what you should be hearing is water. So, Smart phone, vulnerable phone. Smart watch, vulnerable watch. Smart city, smart grid, smart anything. When we connect things on the internet, they become, at least in theory, hackable. If you think about the traditional wristwatch, manual, analog wristwatch, you can't hack it. There's nothing to hack. There's no electronics. It's all connected to anything. You can't hack it. But then when you take a smartwatch and hook it to the internet, at least in theory, it can be hacked. This is the difference. So the smart washing machines and the traditional washing machines we have today are all coming from the same electronics manufacturers. And the change which is underway right now is that these electronics manufacturers have realized that the future is in data. Data is the new oil. Data is the new money. Data is the thing that fuels analytics and machine learning. They want to collect data. They learned this because the leadership team and the board of the company has gone to a Gartner briefing where they've been told that data is the new oil. Then they come back to the office and go to their engineers and say, hey, data is the new oil. How do we get some of this oil? And the CTO and engineers tell the board and the LT that, yeah, we could get data. You know, we just put connectivity chips inside of our washing machines, and then they can collect data and report it back to the headquarters. So then the obvious solution is, okay, let's put these connectivity chips in all of our things, everything we manufacture and sell. Then we know where our customers are. We know where the washing machine users are. We know where the toaster users are. We know where the users who use our microwave ovens are. Let's put it into everything. But then the engineers will tell them that, no, you can't do that. Why? It's too expensive. The price of an IoT chipset is still fairly expensive. It's 5 euros, 10 euros, 15 euros, depends on the chipset. But if it's at 15 euros, which is like 3,000 kronor, sorry, 15 euros, that's too expensive if the washing machine costs 100 euros. They can't do it. They can only right now put the connectivity chips in the smart washing machines because they are more expensive. They can afford to put it there. However, what's the price of an IoT chipset in 10 years? It's going to be 5 cents, 3 cents, 2 cents. Basically free. So in 10 years' time, when you go shopping for a washing machine, you have two choices, just like today. You have traditional washing machines and you have smart washing machines. But even the traditional washing machine will be on the internet. And they won't even tell you that it's on the internet, because it's not on the internet for you. It's on the internet for the manufacturer. The manufacturer wants to collect data. And there's nothing you could do to prevent this. This is going to happen. Whether we like it or not, it's going to happen. And there's nothing you could do to prevent it from going online. I mean, some people are immediately thinking that, I just don't allow it on my Wi-Fi. It won't be able to go anywhere. No. It's not going to go to the internet through your Wi-Fi. It's going to go to the internet through 5G. Or LTE-M, or new Zigbee technologies, or any of the mesh networks we are designing right now. It's not going to need you to go online. It will be online. Everything will be online. And this changes our work. I've been a computer security guy all my life. I used to think that my job is to secure computers. That's a computer. I'm a computer security guy. I secure computers. Well, today our societies run on computers. The lights are on in this room thanks to computers. Water is coming out of the tap thanks to computers. The lunch you had was at least partially made in a food processing plant which runs on computers. So computer security is the thing that doesn't just secure computers, it's securing our societies. Our societies rely on automation, on computers, on IoT, and on ICS. Internet of Things, and industrial control systems. So that's the second revolution. First revolution was computers going online. Second revolution was everything else going online. And if we are lucky, if we live long enough, if we go jogging and eat salad and have a long lifespan, at least some of us will, I think, live long enough to see a third technological revolution during one lifetime, which would be artificial intelligence. Now, I'm not going to go into definitions or start to nitpick about what we really mean when we say artificial intelligence. Let's just say superior intelligence. I'm not just speaking about the kind of machine learning systems we see today, which you can see everywhere. Like if you go making a Google search, and that's an example of machine learning. That's pretty smart. It sort of guesses what you're searching for. You start typing the search phrase, and it already gives you options, and one of them is exactly what you think. That's what it means. It's learning. But in 30, 40 years, we'll probably be able to start combining different narrow systems into combination, and then it will eventually start to resemble general intelligence. I think it's plausible that during the next decades we will see something that is smarter than a human being is. Although I also think we will be moving the finishing line, the definition of a finishing line all the time. When I was younger, I remember reading first articles from local newspapers about machine learning, actually artificial intelligence. And there in that article, the way they described what would be real artificial intelligence is that one day computers will be so smart that they will beat the best chess player on the planet. And then when that actually happened, 20 years ago in 1997, then we sort of collectively all changed our minds. And actually, yeah, now we beat the best chess player, but that's not intelligence, that's just calculation. So that's not what we think is really intelligence. So we keep moving the definition, or changing the definition of what we actually mean by this. Nevertheless, exciting times. 3 major technological revolutions in one lifetime would be quite a ride. I think we're all lucky to be alive right now. And I think internet is the best thing that has happened during my lifetime. I love the internet. Internet which has brought us so much good. But at the very same time, it's also quite obvious that the internet has exposed all of us to completely new kinds of risks. New kinds of risks, new kinds of security failures, and has eroded what we think about as privacy. The difference between crime here in the real world and crime in the online world is that the internet has no geography. There is no geography on the internet. No borders, no distances. And I would claim that the most likely place for a person living in Sweden to become a victim of a crime is no longer the real world. The Nordic countries have fairly low crime rates. Yeah, there's crime, sure, it happens. But still, let's go to Southern Europe, let's go to Southeast Asia, let's go to Southern America, let's go to Africa. We're living in very safe environments. Yeah, crime happens, but it's typically not worse than somebody breaking into your summer cottage to steal something, or maybe picking your pocket at the tram. But when we leave the real world, when we go to our devices, when we move to the online world, then we are no longer in the Nordic countries, we're no longer in Sweden. We are just as close to any potential attacker as any other victim anywhere else on the planet. And I think this is a pretty big shift. the fact that the most likely place for you to become a victim of a crime is no longer the real world. It's the virtual world, it's the online world. I think it's a historic shift, and it's happening right now. And the types of crimes we see on the internet are changing. One of the biggest shifts we ever saw in online attacks happened in 2003. Because in 2003, which is only 15 years ago, we found the first malware which was trying to make money. Today, when you think about malware, that's a given. I mean, what is malware? What's computer viruses? What are Trojans trying to do? Well, they're looking at your system and asking you to pay Bitcoin. Or they are breaching access to your credit card numbers and stealing money from your credit cards. Or they gain access to your online banking interface and steal money from your bank accounts. That's what malware does. Yeah, today, that's what it does. But it hasn't always been like that. Malware used to be written by hobbyists or people who were just trying to destroy things without benefiting at all. The first money-making malware is only 15 years old. But during those 15 years, this has become very, very organized. So today, when we speak about online crime, we speak about organized crime. Organized online crime gangs trying to make money by gaining access to our computers and to our other devices, trying to steal our credentials. So how does it actually work? How do these guys make their money? One thing which we see regularly are breaches into payment systems. Getting access to bank accounts, getting access to credit cards. But even there's a choking point. The choking point is how to get the money out. It's actually fairly easy for online criminals to get access to, let's say, large amounts of credit card numbers. But having 20,000 credit card numbers in a file on your computer is a different thing than having, I don't know, a Ferrari. And in theory, there's so much money on these credit cards that you should be able to buy a Ferrari. But how do you actually do it? How do you actually turn the list of stolen credit card numbers into something that you could have in your garage? Especially, how do you do it without getting caught? These are the choking points for online criminals. And that's why they're very important for us who are trying to fight online criminals. The more we can squeeze the choking points of online criminals, the harder it is for them to do what they want to do. And that's why we see things like these. Let me show you a CCTV security camera footage of this guy. This guy is a money mule working for the Garbanak gang, run from St. Petersburg, Russia. That's an ATM. Suddenly, the ATM spits out money. Let me play that again. This guy is a money mule working for the Garbanak gang, run from the St. Petersburg city in Russia. The ATM, nobody touches it, suddenly spits out money. I like ATMs like this. He collects the money. Note, he even brought a bag for the money. Then he goes away, takes out his phone, and orders more money. 30 seconds later, it spits out more money. He goes on, he empties the whole ATM. The money is coming from a back-end breach of a payment system. This is how they were extracting the money to the real world, converting it into cash. Cash is nice. When you have a bag full of cash, that's fairly easy to go around and use to make purchases of whatever you want to buy. Maybe not a Ferrari, but something like that. But obviously, this is pretty hard. Like, how much money is there in one ATM? A few tens of thousands of euros, a billion kroner. When are you going to change the euro? Come on. Nevertheless, these are the choking points. These are things that make the life hard for online criminals. The Garbanak gang, we believe, is being headed by this guy who lives in St. Petersburg. We know his name, we know a little bit about him, but even at the moment he's not actively looked for by any law enforcement agency, definitely not by the Russians. So when we speak about organized online crime, it's important to note that we don't mean the traditional mafias or triads or yakuzas or any of the traditional real-world organized crime gangs. This is organized crime. But it is different kind of organized crime, with very few links to traditional organized crime, surprisingly few links to traditional organized crime. There's some links in the money laundering side, some links in guided by protection from real-world organized crime, but most of it is completely new kind of organized crime. Organized crime gangs where the members don't know each other. They've never met. They never will meet. They don't know each other's names. They organize their operations in the dark web, in Tor hidden service forums, staying completely anonymous even to other members of the team. Another example on how money is being made by these kind of attackers is credentials theft, which basically means stealing passwords. So let's take an example. The LinkedIn breach, which happened a couple of years ago. Unknown attackers, which actually isn't true, we know who did it. Breached access into LinkedIn database through the web interface of LinkedIn and gained access to a server through which he was able to extradite 200 million LinkedIn user accounts, including the name, email address, and password of the user. This should not be possible. Even if you get a catastrophic breach, you shouldn't be able to get the passwords out of the system. They should be protected by hashing technology. In this case, the attacker got it. All right. So what did he do? He had 200 million email addresses and passwords. What do you do? Well, in this case, the attacker who gained access to this information, as far as we know, the only thing he did was that he sold this database to other hackers over and over, making quite a lot of money in the process. But that doesn't really answer our question. The question is, how do you make money with such an information, such a database? If you're a criminal, how do you turn that into money? Well, one way that we know they were making money was that they were searching the list of 200 million email addresses, searching for Gmail addresses. Because Gmail has become the single sign-on system for the whole internet. And I will explain to you what I mean by that. But let's say you have 200 million addresses and you search for all Gmail addresses in there. Let's say 10% of them are Gmail. So that's 20 million Gmail addresses. Good. Then they use a script which tries logging in to those Gmail accounts using the same password as the user had on LinkedIn. I'll be generous. Let's say that only 10% of the users had the same password on LinkedIn and Gmail. In reality, it's like 50%. But let's say 10%. That would give the attacker access to 2 million Gmail addresses. Now, those of you who use Gmail know that Gmail never forgets. Every single email you have ever received in Gmail is still there. And you can just search for it and find it. If you've been using Gmail for 10 years, you can go back to the messages you got 10 years ago. So, what the attackers start doing now is that they search the email history, they search your email history, looking for specific emails. Looking for those emails that you receive when you register a new account in an online store. You know the emails I mean. The emails which say, "Thank you for registering. Welcome to our store." If you've ever received that from any online store, your Gmail account, it's still there. And anybody who has access to your Gmail will find them. And now they know. Now they know that this guy or this girl with this Gmail address has an account in this online store. And now they will go and try logging into those online stores. And of course, first they will try with the same LinkedIn password. But even if the LinkedIn password doesn't work, even if you have a different password for online stores, it doesn't matter. They will still get in. They will get in because the login page for every online store has a magic button. There's this button which says, I have forgotten my password. So you put in the Gmail address, you click the button, and it sends you a new password to where? To Gmail. They already have your Gmail. This is what I mean by Gmail becoming the single sign-on system for the internet. Once they get in there, then they get in everywhere. So they can reset the password, now they're in the store. If you've saved your payment information, now they can start ordering stuff. If the place is things like Amazon or iTunes, typically what they order is gift cards. $100 gift cards, €50 gift cards. And then they sell them on eBay for €99 or €49. Or they just start ordering Xboxes and PlayStations as gift orders. So they're not shipped to the address in the file, but they're shipped as gift orders to somewhere else. This is how they make money. Another thing that we see happening with email breaches in corporate environments is that the attackers, once again, start reading your emails. But now they're not looking for registration emails to online stores. Now they're looking for something more valuable. If it's a large enterprise, a large company, or just some executive, some guy who has power, they start searching his email for keywords related to payments, orders, instructions to finance department, and learn how exactly in this company or in this enterprise money is being moved. If you have access to some CFO or CEO email, you will find emails where he or she will email the controller or the payments department and give orders. Well, please do this and make this kind of an arrangement, and please do paperwork on this, and let's wire money to this place. And if you have access to such an email, you can start doing it yourself. We regularly see cases where email exchanges between executives and finance departments are intercepted. And for example, PDF files are changed. A real boss sends a real PDF file, which is an approval to move money, and the PDF file is changed to change the account numbers before it hits the financial department. And of course, they will send the money to where the PDF says the money should be sent. And this is very similar to what's known as CEO scams, which typically operate by phone, where finance department gets phone calls from the CEO asking to send money somewhere, and it's not the CEO. And I will give you an example of this, because we were hit by CEO scams 4 years ago. And this was a pretty interesting case, because at the time our CEO was a guy called Christian Fredriksson. And the way this scam operated was that this fake Christian contacted not the finance department in our headquarters, which is where Christian himself was based. Instead, he contacted the finance department in our Asian headquarters, which is in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And the scam started with one email. Fake Christian sent an email from the address of the real Christian. It looks exactly like it would be from a Christian, but it's not. And that email was addressed to the controller working in our Kuala Lumpur office. And the initial email was one line long. One line email, which says, "Hi, I will be calling you in 10 minutes. Please be available. Christian." Now imagine yourself in the shoes of the financial controller in the Kuala Lumpur office. You get this email to your phone. Bling. It's the CEO. Please be available. Well, you will be available. If you are in a meeting, you will excuse yourself and you wait for the big boss to call. Maybe, if you're male, you put on your tie. In this case, it was actually female. Our controller was female. So, 10 minutes later, the phone calls. It's Christian. Well, as we know, it wasn't Christian. But it sounded close enough. No. A European male calling in. And the phone call starts with this. Hello, I am putting you on the insider list of the company, effective immediately. Do you understand? This is how the phone call starts. Now, we are a publicly traded company. When we are in the middle of big movements like mergers and acquisitions, we employ insider lists, which means you're barred from trading stock of the company. Standard procedure. And this is the way we put people on insider lists. Either face-to-face or on the phone. You are told that you are on the insider list. We confirm that you understand that you are on the insider list. And then later you get paperwork that you were put on the insider list at this time, at this hour. Then Christian, the fake Christian, goes on. I just put you on the insider list because we've just acquired a company. A company in mainland China. A company working in building security hardware. We will make this public next Monday. There's going to be a stock exchange notice on this. But now we have to pay the initial cash payment. And it's easiest to pay, since it's going to mainland China, it's easiest to pay from our Asian headquarters. Pretty good story. Pretty good scam. Especially the part that the scammer is targeting a person who's far away and who's more likely to be a bit scared about the big CEO calling. And especially if he would have called our controller at the headquarters, our controller is 2 rooms away from Christian. He would like walk over and ask what's up. It would be obvious that this is not the real Christian. So, what happened? Nothing happened. Our controller at the Malaysian office suspected from the beginning that this is a scam, so she recorded the phone. I have to have a recording of the phone. And she did not send any money. Why? Because she had been trained. Crucial part of any security process in any environment is training of the people. In this case, specifically training the people who have the power of moving money in the company. There's very few people in any organization that can actually move the money. There's more people who can actually give orders or send in bills or things like that, who actually has the right to log into the online banking interface on behalf of the company and move money outside of the company. Very few. But where do you have the people who pay the bills? Oh, let's go and meet the people who pay the bills. Which, by the way, almost always means going to the top floor. That's where they always are. And we go and meet the people who pay the bills. If it's a normal company, it's 1 person. If it's a big, like an enterprise size, it might be 5 persons. Nevertheless, so far, every single time, they've always been middle-aged ladies. Very nice people. Very nice middle-aged ladies. How are you? Very, very good, very good. Nice to meet you. So what do you do? Well, I pay the bills. Nice. How do you pay the bills? Well, I use this banking interface. I have this smart card to authenticate, and I have this computer, and I'm logging into this online bank interface. Very nice. Can you show me the computer? Yep, sure, here we go. Desktop, running Windows 7 maybe, something like that. Then I asked, so how much money would go through this computer per month? What do you think? And now, of course, the answer depends on the company. But, 600,000 euros or 2 million euros or whatever. A lot of money. And then my last question. The killer question. Which is, could you now show me the computer that you use for Facebook and YouTube and making Google searches? Where's that? And now they are confused. What do you mean? What do you mean? I use this same computer. And you can sort of see the light bulb go on top of their heads when they realize that, I just told him that I move 2 million euros through this computer every month. Why am I going to Facebook with the same computer? And that's a very good question. Because computers are cheap. She could easily have, a computer for moving the 2 million euros a month, and then another computer for everything else. And no, I'm not suggesting like completely sealing that payment computer off the network. That's not going to work either. She needs to be able to receive emails, weekly bills and stuff. I'm just saying, don't use it for anything else that you don't have to use it for. It's not really rocket science. And I guess the first time I realized this myself was a little over 10 years ago. Remember when online poker was all the rage? Texas Hold'em was really at the top of the hype curve, maybe 12 years ago. We got contacted by a professional poker player. A guy that probably some here would know, because he's used to be at least regularly on TV. Internationally known poker player, millionaire. And he had a problem. Because he was playing poker in the casinos, in the real world, with real money. And he was also playing poker in the online world, in the biggest poker sites, high stakes poker. And of course, because he's a professional, he lives with this. So he's keeping books. And he can't figure it out when he was comparing his earnings in the real world and in the online world. In the real world, it was constantly going up. In the online world, he was constantly losing money, and he couldn't explain why. And he had this nasty feeling that there's something on his computer. So we checked it. And yes, he was right. Turns out, almost a year earlier, while he was playing online poker against other players, at the same time as they were playing, they were chatting. And they were chatting about tools people use. And one other player was suggesting this odds calculator, this program he's running on his computer, which calculates pot odds. Oh yeah? Does it work? Yeah, it works. It's good. Where did you get it from? Well, I got it from here. And he gave the URL. And this guy goes and downloads the program on his computer and runs it, which actually is a pot odds calculator. It does what it claims, but it also had a backdoor. A very, very simple backdoor, which allowed the other player, the guy who recommended the calculator, to push one button on his computer, and that one button will take a screenshot of the other guy's computers and send it over. And that screenshot contains your cards. And if you don't know much about poker, if I know your cards, I will win. Alright? So for a year, regularly these guys, the guy who knew the cards and the guy who was losing the money, were playing against each other regularly, probably many times a week. And he was pretty good in this game. He wasn't using it too often. He only used it when it really mattered, like every now and then. But this was the difference. And I had the very same discussion with this poker player back then. Like, show me your computer. Windows desktop. Like, is this the only computer you have? Yeah. Is this the one you play poker with? Yeah. Is this the one you go and surf porn with? Yeah. Real questions, real answer. And I told him that, you know what, you are a millionaire. Computers are cheap. And when you are a professional, regardless of your profession, when you are a professional, you pay respect to your tools. You don't screw around with your tools. If you're a car mechanic, you pay attention to your tools. This is your tool. So what you do now is that you throw away this PC. You go and buy yourselves 2 new PCs. One of them, do whatever you want with it, except poker. And the other one is for poker only. You install a poker client on it, and you don't install anything else on it. And when you're not playing poker with it, you put it in a safe. It's exactly the same idea. It's about limiting your exposure. Not really rocket science, but you first have to think about it. It's pretty obvious once you think it through. Now, when I spoke about choking points, and how one of the biggest challenges for online criminals for years and years has been how to get the money out without getting caught. Now, this is changing right now. It's changing because of cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies are changing the landscape of online crime. And this change has been very, very fast. It's all about money becoming data. It's actually funny when you think about it, but cash, real world physical cash, which we have in our pockets, that's analog money. Cash is analog money. Most of the money today is digital money, because most of the money we have is in our accounts. It's not cash. But this is different kind of digital money. It's money which has no link to any traditional currencies, where the inherent value come from completely different sources. This is footage from Iceland. This is a mining for Bitcoin. These computers are using the cheap electricity available in Iceland and the cheap cooling which is available in Iceland, because it is Iceland. So a big part of the actual mining work which is required today to run cryptocurrency services has moved to places where there's cheap electricity and cheap cooling. And the idea behind criminals using cryptocurrency is actually fairly obvious. Real world criminals love cash. Online criminals love cryptocurrencies. Exactly for the same reasons. They're anonymous, they're hard to trace, they're easy to launder, easy to anonymize. All the biggest cryptocurrencies, like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Monero, Zcash, Litecoin, run on top of public blockchains. Public blockchains are open ledgers, ledgers of transactions, basically a list of transactions. This guy sent money to this girl at this time, and this much money. You put that information into a ledger which is public forever and unchangeable forever. That's what blockchains are. Lists of transactions which are made public forever and unchangeable forever. You can never change them. And this kind of mechanism creates an interesting dilemma for investigators who are trying to track money. We regularly get the question that how come we can't figure out where the money went when it went to Bitcoins or Moneros or Zcash. I mean, it's in the blockchain. Just look where it went. And that's a very good point. Because it is public information. I mean, you can go today, right after this, to your computer and download the Bitcoin blockchain. You can just download it. It's pretty big. It's around 1 or 2 gigs now. But you can fit it on a big drive. And that single file contains every Bitcoin transactions for the last 9.5 years, almost 10 years. Bitcoin was invented in December 2008, so almost 10 years. That one file will contain every single transaction that has ever been done in Bitcoin by anybody. And you can look at every single one of them. You don't see who sent money to who, but you will see the transactions. So in theory, we should be able to track money moving around. And I say in theory, because in practice, when we try to do it, we run into problems like this. This is the wallet used by the ransomware Petya. On July 9th, last summer, the attackers started moving money from that wallet to new wallets. And we can see this because it's a blockchain, public blockchain. We can see transactions happening. The size of the circle illustrates how much money was moved. Easy. The problem is that on the next day, they moved the money from these wallets to these wallets. And this went on for several days. Then they started moving money from the Bitcoin blockchain to the Monero blockchain, and that's where we lose track. We don't know where the money went. Now, I told you, real-world criminals love cash, just like online criminals love cryptocurrencies. We probably all have cash, well, probably not all of us have cash in our pockets, but many of us have cash in our pockets. Some of us have cash in our pockets. We used to have cash in our pockets. We've seen cash. So clearly cash isn't bad, just like cryptocurrencies aren't bad. They are a tool. Tool which can be used for good, tool which can be used for bad. One thing cryptocurrency has been used for bad for quite a while is ransom trojans. We've been trying to make a map of different ransom trojan families, and the map has become so large we can't even fit it on a single slide anymore. There's tons of gangs making all of their money with these. Exactly in the same way we regularly see break-ins to large cryptocurrency exchanges, which is sort of like breaking into a bank, except it's not a bank. They have the same amount of money as a bank. Some of these heists have been up to $500 million, so $500 million. And the difference from a traditional bank is not the amount of money, it's the fact that these are startups. If you try to break into a traditional bank, it's hard. Why? Because banks have thousands of employees, hundreds of security people with decades of experience. These are startups. The whole company has like 20 people. Obviously, it's easier to break into these. And the best part, if you get in, then it's game over, because the money, the loot, has already been anonymized and it has already been laundered. So you actually can go and buy your Lamborghini or Ferrari the next day and you will not be caught. This is why crime is moving towards these kinds of targets. Makes perfect sense when you look at it from the point of view of the criminals. Now in the blockchain animation, the example ransom trojan I used was Petya. And that's actually, in a way, a bad example. Because Petya was actually not trying to make money. It's sort of an oxymoron, but it's a ransomware trojan locking you out of your own data, demanding you to pay a ransom, but it actually doesn't want the ransom. Because it only tried to look like a ransom trojan. In reality, Petya was a military strike. Petya was a cyber weapon trying to look like a regular criminal malware. It was a weapon which tried to look like a civilian attack. In reality, it was a military strike. Military strike launched from one country to another country. In this case, launched from Russia, targeting Ukraine. And the targeting was done by sending the malware through a bookkeeping software, a financial bookkeeping software called MEDoc, this software right here. Software developed in Kyiv, in Ukraine, only available to Ukrainian market, only running in Ukrainian language, only used in Ukraine. So on the 29th of June, last summer, summer of 2017, when the attackers launched an extra update to MEDoc, that update was Petya. And it only hit companies which were running this bookkeeping software, 99% of which were Ukrainian companies. Vast majority of the victims of Petya were in Ukraine. And if you were a victim of Petya, Petya overwrote the boot sectors on your computer, which means your computer is no longer booted. So they were supermarket chains which had to shut down in the middle of the day because the cashiers were not operating. But this is not the story. We heard about that. This is much closer to the story we heard 2 years earlier about Picarpatto Oblenergo, which is the second largest electricity grid provider in Ukraine, which was also being targeted during this crisis by attacks from Russia. The story we heard during Petya in the newspapers around the world was not a story about targets in Ukraine, it was a story about Western companies getting hit by Petya. Companies like these, companies which had nothing to do with Ukraine. These are not Ukrainian companies. Why would they be hit by Petya? Well, even though these are not Ukrainian companies, these are global companies. Companies that do business in every country on the planet. Like, for example, Maersk. Every fifth container on the planet is shipped by Maersk. They do business in 200 countries around the planet, including business in Ukraine. And if your company does enough business in Ukraine, your company has to file taxes to the Ukrainian government. And the way companies file taxes to the Ukrainian government is with MEDOC, the financial software MEDOC. So this is why these Western companies were hit by an attack which really wasn't trying to target the West at all, which was trying to target one single country. But it was such a massive case that it became the single most expensive computer security incident in history. The single most expensive computer security incident in history, causing more money than any computer malware outbreak ever, more money than any data breach ever, more money than any data leak or any hack ever. In this case, several hundreds of millions of euros. But it's also important to note, especially since we are in a business school, that companies almost never go bankrupt, even if they get hacked really bad. Yeah, there might be big losses, which the company might have to make public, if it's a public company. But even the worst cases we've seen, companies don't really fall. They are able to recover. Sony Pictures was hacked really badly 3 years ago. They recovered. Global Payments lost tens of millions of credit card numbers. They recovered. Even their stock value recovered in roughly 2 years after the breach. What does happen is that bosses get fired. CEOs, CIOs, CISOs, so Chief Information Security Officers, yeah, they get fired a lot. That happens. But the companies in general do survive. I actually did a study on this. I was able to find only a handful of real companies which really would have gone bankrupt just because of getting hacked. They do exist. There are examples of exactly that happening, but they are far rarer than people think. So I guess that's a positive sign. Getting hacked is not the end of the world, even if it's really, really bad. There is recovery, there is redemption. It's possible. So that would make Petya a governmental attack instead of a criminal attack. An attack launched by an intelligence agency or a military instead of it being criminals or hacktivists or extremists. The very first governmental malware case I ever analyzed was in 2003, and it was targeting a company here in Sweden, a military contractor. A military contractor where these guys are pretty good at marching, huh? I've seen your army march, it doesn't look like it. That case 15 years ago involved a military contractor where an executive in that company had received an email from one of their clients in Swedish. And the email contained a Word document where the contents were in Swedish and were speaking about relevant topics, projects underway. Made perfect sense. The only problem was that the client had never sent the email. It was spoofed. And the Word document contained an exploit which took over this executive's laptop, through which the attackers, which we believe to be from mainland China, gained access not to his laptop only, but also to the whole company network. Everything that he could see, they could see. And this is a typical example of the kind of intelligence attacks or spying attacks that we see in the online world. Spying has expanded from the real world to the online world. We've always had spies. Spying is collecting information. Information used to look like this. It used to be physical. It used to be stuck on paper. So 20 years ago, if you were a spy, your job was to go to the information, physically to the information, so you could steal it or copy it or photograph it. Today, of course, you don't have to go anywhere. Today, information is data. That's why spying has not really moved, but expanded from the real world to the online world. So for years and years, we've been telling companies to safeguard their networks and secure them, sort of like you would be building a safe. You just try to keep everybody out all the time. When you're building a safe, you put in thick walls and a thick door and good lock, and then you're safe. Nobody can get in. And if you have a safe with a thick wall and thick door and good lock, then you don't need a motion detector inside. Why would you put a motion detector inside? Nobody's going to get inside. There's no need to put a motion detector inside the safe, right? Right? Well, in case the attacker figures out a way to get into the safe that you didn't think about, like, I don't know, coming through the ceiling. In that case, it actually would be very nice to have a motion detector inside the safe, even though you think you don't need it. The network equivalent here is putting firewalls and filters and proxies and gateways around your network, trying to keep everybody out all the time. And what we've learned is that it's goddamn hard to keep everybody out all the time. Nobody wants to get breached, but the fact of the life is that we should be assuming it's going to happen anyway. And the only way you will be able to tell that you've been breached is by having the motion detectors inside of your network, looking at what's happening in the network. Because if you can't stop the breach, then the next best thing is to detect that you have a breach and respond to the breach. And the biggest innovation I'm seeing around computer security industry right now is in this space. There's plenty of existing legacy companies like ours, which have been building endpoint protection and antivirus and gateways and filters for years and years, building the safe. But right now the innovation seems to be in young and starting companies which are building the motion detectors, or building exciting new technologies like deception technologies. What's the movie series and cartoon series with Decepticons? Transformers. Yeah. Deception technologies are a little bit similar to Decepticons. The idea is that you will assume that the attacker will get in anyway. And then you're thinking about, okay, if there is someone in our network, what is he going to look for? Let's build something in our network which looks really juicy. And then when someone touches this, we get an alarm. That's deception technology. So for example, easy example, in your file storage server where everybody keeps all their documents, you make a new folder called mergers and acquisitions. And under that, future plans. And then 2020. And then planned mergers and acquisitions. And then you put doc files in there. And if anybody ever opens any of those doc files, you get an alarm. And your real employees, they don't keep their files there. They have nothing to do with it. They have completely different structures. But for an outsider stumbling into the network, that's going to look really juicy. And they're going to go and trip the wire. That's deception technology. Plenty of interesting innovation happening in that space. Plenty of interesting innovation space happening in the space for mobile technologies and mobile ways of securing connectivity between devices, especially IoT space. And I regularly get people asking advice for building their career in IT security, and I always tell them that don't listen to me. I've been working at the same company for 27 years. Ask anyone else. But if you really want my advice is pick a niche. Pick an area of expertise. Pick a narrow niche, your field. The narrower, the better. And then you become the best in the world in that field, or best in Europe, best in your country. And if it's a really narrow field, it's possible. Anybody can do that. You know, I'm the best in Sweden in building authentication systems for checkpoint firewalls between these two systems, for example. If you do that, you will always have a job. You're the best. Whenever someone needs that, you're the best. Of course, it has to be something you enjoy doing. I mean, it has to be something you are interested in for you to pick that as your niche. But the same advice applies to companies. When you're starting businesses, there's plenty of space for innovation. There's plenty of space for opportunities in security. Security companies are growing all over the world. This business has, when I started, it was tiny. Now it's multi-billion-dollar industry, full of new companies coming and going, mergers and acquisitions left and right. And the companies with narrow niches often thrive. Although they often thrive because they get acquired. I was visiting Google in July. There was a meeting with people who work with security systems for Google Cloud, which is the Google Cloud engine, is their competitor to AWS, the Amazon Web Services platform. And I was having lunch with a guy from Amsterdam. So I chatted him, what does he do? And he was the CEO for a startup, 2-year-old startup. Really interesting stuff. Building security solutions for integrating Google Cloud engines, data transfers between different data centers, something like that. It sounded like they had really good people there and really interesting. I just couldn't figure out the business model. Who are you gonna sell this to? Who's the customer? How are you planning to make money? I asked him, how are you planning to make money with this? What's the exit? And he told me straight off, well, the exit is that we believe Google will buy us. That's it. That's the business model, which is a little bit unorthodox. They're not planning to make any money ever. They just hope Google will buy it. Most likely they will, though. It seemed really interesting technology. There was just no easy way of selling it to any outsider. There are opportunities in security. There's job security in security. And this especially applies because right now what's happening is that all companies are becoming software companies. It doesn't matter what your company does, it's going to be a software company anyway. Because today the difference between successful and unsuccessful companies is how good you are in digitalization. And this especially applies to existing companies who didn't start as software companies, but now thanks to the revolution we're living in, they need to become one. Since we are here in the middle of Volvolandia, think about cars. What are cars today? Cars are data centers on 4 wheels. That's what they are. It's a prime example of how every company is becoming a software company. Or the better you are as a software company, the more successful you are. So 3 revolutions. Computer revolution, well, the internet revolutions, I should say, which already happened. IoT revolution, which is happening right now. And then if you eat your salad and go jogging, one day we'll see AI revolution. Not yet, but maybe one day. And all the security problems we've ever seen, every single breach, every single outbreak, every single hack, we can divide those into 2 different groups. Either it was a question of a technical problem, or it was a people problem. Technical problems like vulnerabilities in the systems. People problems like users opening attachments and clicking on links they should not have clicked on, or giving their passwords to phishing pages. These are different problems, and they're both hard problems. But at least we know how to fix technical problems. In the end, technical problems are bugs. Bugs in the code. Code which is being written by people, human beings, and people make mistakes. So we will always have bugs. And the way we fix vulnerabilities is that we fix the bug and we update the systems. It might be hard, might be slow, might be expensive, but we know how to do it. And then the other problem, the people problem, is it's hard because there's no patch for brains. And people do stupid stuff. People do stupid stuff. Stuff like, I don't know, go on Twitter. I have to skip through my slides, it's just a slide I'm on. Go through Twitter and post public tweets where they order pizza. I quit. And then when somebody points out to him that, hey, that's a bad idea, he asks, why? Having worked all my life in a company which has been in computer security has taught me many lessons. But it's also quite clear that even when you see the future coming, it's not always easy. I mean, I'd like to think that we saw the internet coming back then in 1994. If that's true, we probably should have been able to gain more growth out of this massive revolution. And yeah, sure, we've grown. We're still fairly small, 1,600 people. We're 30 years old. You would think that it would be easy. It's not easy. Even when you see the future coming, it's not always easy to go on for the ride. I wish you luck in catching up the next wave of the future. Thank you very much.
A very, very interesting talk, and which I think has raised awareness to some degree. So we will now open up for questions for Mikko, and we have one mic over there, so please raise your hand. And in the meantime, while you think a little bit about questions, let me start by asking a question, because when we discussed earlier, you talked about IT security as being something that enables people. And it would be very interesting to hear you talk about what you mean by enabling people.
I'm glad you bring it up, and I think it's a crucial point, because IT security has a bad reputation. Nobody likes security people, especially IT security people. Why? Because we always say no. Hey, can I buy this new kind of device to use at work? No. Hey, can we open up the firewall to use this new service? No. Can we do this? No. And I'm sort of bored with always saying no. So I've decided that from now on I'm always going to say yes. Yeah, you can buy the device. Yes, we can use the service. Yes, we can open up the firewall. But, and of course there has to be a but. But it sort of changes the mindset because it reminds us why we're doing security to begin with. Security is not a purpose in itself, it's an enabler. It's the layer that enables the people to do what they want to do. Nobody buys a computer to run an antivirus. People buy computers to be creative, to be productive, and we should always remember that. That's why security should be thought as the enabler. It's the enabling layer, not a purpose in itself.
Okay, thank you. Yes?
Please wait for the mic.
I just wonder what you think about information centralization and if you think that's a threat to us and what you want to do about it, if you think it's a threat.
Information centralization, I suppose, to most people today that would translate to the cloud. Like that the fact that we are storing our own information into cloud, like our photos and our documents, and then also the fact that information about us, profiles of our behavior, are being stored by sites like Facebook and Google, which monetize that information. Now these are a little bit different problems. My central claim about using cloud computation and cloud storage is pretty hopeful. Right now we face a very concrete lack of talent in this space. There are not enough security people for every organization. And if that's true, then many companies, most companies I would claim, would be more secure into storing their systems into cloud services run by the big boys, Amazon, IBM, Microsoft, these guys. Because they do have world-class, million-dollar budget security teams. They are better in providing security for your data than most companies are able to do by themselves. It's more secure. It might not be more private, but it's more secure. The biggest problem with US-based cloud storage systems is that we European companies have no rights. US government can look at our data as much as they want according to their law, which is a bit problematic. That can be mitigated to some extent by using encryption, but still it is a bit problematic. The more complex part of the picture is then data certification, which comes around sites like Facebook, LinkedIn, Google, and Twitter, which are free, but instead monetize themselves by collecting year-long histories of what we like, who we communicate with, what are our preferences, build dossiers out of that, and sell those dossiers to the highest bidders. That's very problematic, and it's also very unlikely to change.
What web browsers and VPN services do you recommend?
Good question. So, web browsers and VPNs. Well, VPN is really easy. I'm going to recommend Freedom VPN because it's ours, of course. Although not just because it's ours. I would actually use it even if I wouldn't be working for F-Secure. Partially because I know exactly how it's run, but it's also very easy to use, which means people actually use it, and it's fast. Now, 30-second background on why VPNs matter. When you are using your own phone and you're connecting to 4G or 5G, it actually doesn't matter much at all. But when you are traveling in Paris and you connect to the local Wi-Fi Starbucks, everyone else in that Starbucks sees your traffic, unless you use a VPN. So whenever you use Wi-Fi, if it's not your own home Wi-Fi or corporate Wi-Fi, a VPN is always a good idea. VPN is an app you install to your Android or iPhone phone from the App Store. There's plenty of options. We make one, it's called Freedom. That's the one I would recommend. Then the question on the browsers. The most secure browser in the marketplace is Google Chrome. No real question about it. It's not the most private one. So once again, we are facing a trade-off between privacy and security. If you're looking for alternatives to Chrome, then I would recommend Brave. Brave, which also integrates a way of utilizing a token to sell your attention to advertisers in an ethically responsible way. It's a pretty good browser, but it also has other interesting new technologies. So yeah, Chrome and Brave would be the ones I recommend. Over here.
Yeah, I'll ask another question for the students in the meantime, in the sense that in a few years they are going out on the market, and if you will give them one message in terms of when they enter into a new position for the first time, and in order not to become a security threat to that firm, or even potentially help that firm become less of a security threat, what's the type of advice you would give them?
Well, one unique skill set that you all have, much better than 90% of the staff in the company that you're joining, is that you have visibility into different facets of social media. You're younger, you're using different kinds of services, and that is powerful and useful. For example, you are in a position to tell when something like messages mentioning or about the company that you're working for starts stirring up in different social media services or forums or chat, which you might be the only employee in the company that actually sees that. So you can sort of work as sensors for the company regarding the kind of information that should be trickling up to the real management or to the PR departments. So that's very practical, and I recommend using that to your advantage.
More and more sites have started using 2FA, two-factor authorization. And I wonder, is that a thing that is very easy for the hackers to bypass, or is it quite secure?
So two-factor authentication means that you log into a service on a website by giving username and password, and then it sends you a challenge, which might be typically, or it used to be mostly, text messages. So you're on your computer, and then you get a text message to your phone, a number. You type it in, and now you're in. It's called two-factor authentication because you have two things, your computer and your phone. So that's where it comes from. Nowadays, it gets a little bit more complicated because we're quite often looking into these services with our phone. So that if you get a text message, it's the same device. So it's not that much of a two-factor anymore. I'm not a fan of two-factor authentication systems which are based on text messages. SMS systems are easy to circumvent, typically by cloning the SIM, which can be done either by physically cloning the SIM or simply by calling the operator and making a social engineering story where you explain that I've lost my SIM, could you please change it to this new SIM? This we've seen happen many times. Two-factor authentication solutions which are based on solutions like Authenticator, special secure apps which use time-limited mechanisms of authenticating the user are much better. And especially when the Authenticator app is on a secure device, such as a smartphone, Android or iPhone, it's actually hard to bypass. If you have to choose between an iPhone and an Android phone for security or privacy purposes, the choice is clear. iPhone is both more secure and more privacy-centric. Google's business model is to make a profile of you and to sell it to the highest bidder. Apple's business model is to sell you overpriced stuff. They're not in the business of building a profile of you at all. Let me give you an example. Apple Pay. Many of you probably use it. Looks very similar to Google Pay. You get to the cashier, you show the phone to it, click, and it's paid. The difference is, when you use Apple Pay, Apple gives the credit card terminal through the NFC handshake a credit card number. But that credit card number is not your credit card number. Like when you punch in the credit card number to Apple Pay, which is your real, let's say, Nordea credit card, when you actually use that, the cashier, it's not that card. They give it a temporary, virtual, one-time card, which doesn't exist at all. Even if the cashier is criminal and he gets your card number, he can't use it. It's one time. It can only be used once. Even better, the information that you just bought, I don't know, vodka with your card. That information, as your students, beer, mellanöl. The fact that you just brought mellanöl with your Apple Pay never goes to Apple. This is valuable information. This is the kind of information Google loves. It absolutely will go to Google if you pay with Google Pay. If you pay with Apple Pay, Apple doesn't know. They don't collect that information. They make a conscious effort of not collecting it. Because that's better for your privacy. Why? Because Apple is not in the business of breaching your privacy. They are in the business of selling you overpriced stuff.
Okay, so yeah, we have another question here. Thank you.
I just wonder what you think about cryptocurrency. Is there a future there?
I do think cryptocurrency solutions are here to stay. Most of the existing cryptocurrencies will fail. That's easy to say because there's 1,000 cryptocurrencies, 950 of them will fail. I think Bitcoin will survive long term, even though it is really rudimentary and it's sort of like the first web browsers. You know, it's something. It's real. It works. It's the right idea, but the implementation is still a bit off. Of course, it's the first attempt, but it has such a long history now that I think it will survive. Valuation, nobody will know. But there are other cryptocurrencies which are joining, and if you remember the old Gartner hype cycle, 2 years ago we were at the peak of the hype cycle, now we're at the bottom of the hype cycle, but then the realization will slowly raise. Blockchain will rise again, that's for certain. Some cryptocurrencies will probably rise again as well. This is not investment advice. I don't recommend investing real money into cryptocurrencies, but if you're ever going to buy them, it's probably fairly low.
Okay, we have time for one final question.
What's the most interesting case you worked on?
In 2004, we were decoding a piece of malware which was building an attack network, but we couldn't figure out why. It had this encrypted list of IP addresses inside the code, and it was timed that on a certain date it would decode the list, connect these servers, and get instructions to do something. And we didn't know what it was, but we knew the timing. We had basically like 6 days. We knew that on Friday at 11 p.m. we would decode this list and start decoding it. So we tried cracking the list beforehand, so we would shut down the servers or filter the servers. So no matter what it tried to do on Friday, it wouldn't be able to do because we knew it wasn't going to be anything good. And we spent 2 days trying to figure out. Finally, one of our Hungarian crypto experts cracked the encryption, and we got the list of the IP addresses. And this was crucial because this particular malware, which was an email word, was spreading like wildfire at the time. It was that time when a user would receive email worm, would click on it, and then he would send it automatically to everybody in his address book. So a user sends it to everybody, and all those people know the sender. So they will open up the attachment, which means they will send it to everybody. So they spread like wildfire. So when we got decrypted list of the IP addresses, it was Wednesday afternoon. We had 2 days to shut down this list. So I pick up the phone, I call up the Finnish government computer emergency response team, which we've always done lots of cooperation with. They're actually headquartered half a mile from our headquarters. I called them up and said, hey, we cracked it. We have the list. We have, I believe, 28 IP addresses. We have to get these offline as quickly as possible. And they're like, yes, excellent. Mail me the list. And I mailed the list to the researcher in charge, or researcher in the shift at the moment, at the computer emergency response team. And then he calls me back half an hour later. I said, no, I never got it. Did you mail it? I said, yes, I did. Then we realized that their email server was down because of the email outbreak. It was just so many emails being sent that they couldn't reach it. It's like, oh, okay, well, I'll fax it to you. I'll fax it to you, okay? It's 28 IP. I can just fax it to you. It's like, we don't have a fax. Come on. All right. So what do we do? Then I grabbed the closest guy to me. I said, here's the printed list. You go and just, drive there, but bring it to them so we can shut this down. So he goes downstairs to the parking garage, gets out, crashes his car. Just outside of our headquarters. And then he abandons his car and he runs to the emergency response team and hands them over the list. And then we spent the next 2 days shutting them down, and we succeeded. I always thought that you could make a movie plot out of that. That's one of the most exciting things I've ever. Typically, we're just behind the keyboard, so that was really exciting.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Mikko.
Thank you.